Hello, Meoni here, welcome back to another video. Today we're looking at the Series 11 PvP reward, the Rule Breaker Attire, that's acquired from level 25 of Series 11 PvP. Series 11 is available until patch 7.56 on the 8th of September, so you have until the 8th of September to collect the rewards from this Marmstone Season Pass, Battle Pass thing, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, on September the 8th, presumably there'll be another series that gets basically added, and that will last until the launch of Evercold. The Rule Breaker Attire coffer then is what you get for level 25. You can do any PvP in the game, casual, ranked, front lines, anything you can imagine, anything you can queue for will work towards this. It took me a while to get to level 25. It was quite sweaty in PvP, honestly, in Crystalline Conflict. But yes, this is the 5-piece set then, so I thought we'd demonstrate this today. And of course, we have ourselves some very unique pieces on this, which I think some people will either love and some people will probably hate. The first thing that you might notice about this outfit is the plastic sort of cover at the top of the torso there, which is built into the chest piece, which is kind of like a rain cover or a futuristic sort of racing sort of styled cover. You might see this in various anime, for example. A lot of people have looked at this outfit and gone, wow, that just looks like it's straight out of Blitzball or something from Final Fantasy X, and they're not doing it themselves any favors at Square Enix by not providing us with more Blitzball content. Obviously, a lot of people would like to see Blitzball in the game, and there's a lot of outfits that are kind of leaning that way. One of the things I like the most about this outfit is definitely the gloves. We'll get to that in a section. I thought we'd basically break all of those bits off into separate clips, but yeah, it's not a bad looking outfit. I think a lot of people might be suffering from a little bit of a lethargy because, quite honestly, we've had a lot of futuristic sets added in Dawntrail. Dawntrail has been the expansion of futuristic sets, thanks to Solution 9, etc. That top sort of raincoat-esque bit there with the zip down the middle, lots of striking colors separating all of those different textures. It is quite surprising to see see-through textures. It's something that we've seen very small amounts. I can't really think of that many examples in the game. The visor is quite nice and shiny. We've got this sort of green with a black strap across the top there with a buckle, a nice little star symbol as well. That's quite nice. It reminds me of sort of like a poker night sort of visor. You could probably make like a casual outfit with this. I've seen a lot of people use the visor in different glamour combinations, and it did end up growing on me the more I used it, basically, since I got this outfit. The top is a tricky one to kind of match to, especially with the texture choices. I think most people will agree with that. But yes, the helm, very nice. The gloves then are my favorite part. They are sort of mecha inspired. It looks like the sort of thing you'd wear if you were driving around on a motocross sort of bike or something like that, or futuristic kind of sportswear, that leather sort of palm section, and then it's split off with all of the various different colors. And just looking at this, you know this is going to be a nightmare to dye, and it turned out to be quite interesting. Not too bad in terms of dyes. We'll look at that in a moment. The legs then are quite interesting because they've got this kind of breathable leather sort of texture with a white strip down the side, kind of, you know, sort of solidifying the athletic vibe with this. Big pockets, big bulky pockets, and the splits in the knees there. It's not a bad looking outfit. It does fit quite nicely together and is a good juxtaposition of different colors and textures, but I think that's probably going to make it a little bit difficult to match to. If you're wondering, that sort of tied sweatshirt is part of the torso. This is not a separatable portion of the outfit. It is pretty cool. It is a big jacket. I think that in 8.0, when we have the ability to separate items off of pieces, that was something that they talked about in one of the dev panels, and obviously the key features of 8.0. I think you'll probably be able to separate some of those pieces. It'll be nice to see if we can toggle off that sweatshirt. The legs are pretty cool, honestly. Like I say, they might not be everyone's cup of tea. They are quite unique, though. A lot of outfits in the game, they have this tendency to just be straight leggings, or, you know, leather trousers on the underside with a really sort of over-the-top outfit on the top of it. But they're quite unique. I can see myself using these in a variety of different sort of glamours, probably some crafting or gathering glamours, quite honestly. There's, yeah, I don't know. It's gonna have to wait and see if it grows on me with that sort of exposed knee section. It's not bad, but it's not really my vibe. But I do sort of recognize how unique it is in comparison to a lot of other sort of basic leggings that we get in the game for a lot of these sets. Again, a lot of people might be looking at the set and going, it's not my cup of tea. I preferred when we had the Archfiend attire and things like that, big plate sort of outfits. Hopefully that makes a return one day. The boots are quite nice though. They're kind of a mix between combat boots and sort of very fashionable boots, sort of quite bulky. Yeah, a bit of athleticism built in there with little graffiti tags on the back to put the shoes on. Quite nice, honestly. But yeah, probably some of the nicest boots that we've had. Boots are kind of difficult in this game to get right. You know, ones with laces, usually the dye options are awful. And then things without laces sometimes seem a little bit too simple. There's not enough detail to break them apart. I do think they're quite nice, though. Overall, I do like the outfit, but it might not be everyone's cup of tea, and I think for that reason, it's one of the weaker outfits that we've seen. I think the niche definitely has been ticked for this expansion. A lot of people will be looking at this and going, it's interesting. I like the idea of the different materials that obviously are only available simply because of the Glamour updates in Dawntrail, right, with 7.0 with the texture updates. They're playing a lot with a lot of these textures, and it shows. And I quite like the idea of this top, honestly. I do like the idea of switching things off, though, so maybe the plastic section would be detachable via a toggle. Again, you know, that system in Evercold couldn't come soon enough. I can't wait to play around with that. And hopefully they backdate it to a lot of Dawntrail items and before that. So a quick look at dyes then. As you can see, the dye palettes for this are fairly simple. They're not too bad, but the big problem here is that the plastic section of the torso is not going to change color, and the actual undergarment as well isn't changing color either. So as long as you like that black undergarment, you're fine, but if you don't like that, that's probably going to be quite a detractor for you. And for that reason, I think the chest piece is going to be hard to mix and match with, unless you go for some like Vanguard pieces or some of the more futuristic sets like the heavyweight sets, for example. But even they might be a little bit too bulky. There's kind of like futuristic and then there's sports futuristic, and the two don't normally mix together. Maybe some of the critical hit stuff like the other PvP gear would match nicely to this, like the bottoms, for example, things like that. But yeah, it's not a bad dye palette system, but it could be better, and hopefully in the future we can have a third dye palette. I know I'm quite greedy for asking for something like that, but I will never stop asking for more dye palette options. I mean, we still haven't got double dye palettes for furnishings in the game. That's something that I've been harping on about. So hopefully, hopefully we can get some more customization, and maybe not even just extra palettes, just the availability to toggle what sections actually dye. Again, those are all pipe dreams, and at current, that is the way the outfit looks. Again, you're going to have a lot of clipping if you've got longer hair. So you're probably looking for something that sort of cuts off around the collar height on the back of your character. Aside from that, you're probably going to incur quite a lot of clipping. Even with the visor as well, you can see there's quite a lot of clipping with a shorter hairstyle. So unless you're practically bald or have a shaved sort of character's head, or some of the shorter male aesthetic hairstyles, you're going to have quite a lot of clipping. It's pretty cool. It's very unique. But at the same time, I think a lot of people might be a little exhausted with the kind of futuristic stuff that's been added to the game. In terms of armoire storage, we still can't store it in armoire. Hopefully PvP sets in the future get added to those. We do have the availability to store this as a outfit glamour though, so instead of taking up 5 spots, we can simply take up 1, which is always nice. I would love to see a glamour storage expansion in the future. That's something that a lot of people are hoping for, and I'm sure Evercold will deliver on that. It would be crazy if they didn't at this point. But yeah, we've got lots of things that can be stored in the armoire. Maybe this is the future of all the sets of gear, right? We've recently had dungeon gear and class job specific gear added to the armoire. So maybe we should get PvP rewards added there as well. I've got some cool sort of little silly glam ideas for you. Mixing a lot of the Vanguard stuff here. I thought that was a nice sort of setup with the heavyweights gear. Trying to match to that chest piece again. It's very tricky. The visor there, very easy to match to. I love the new StarTech coat that was added in one of the recent patches. I think that the gathering and crafting stuff is sorely underused in Glamour creation, so I think that looks quite nice and sort of a typical example of where you might see the visor be mixed in. So just to address the elephant in the room just before we wrap up this video, the original version of this video was pretty bad. Honestly, one of the worst videos I've ever made. And admittedly, I did use some generative AI to help me spice up the script because I was running out of ways to describe items, which is a really poor excuse and quite frankly something that I don't support either. It was an experiment. It was a terrible experiment, and we will never be using that kind of stuff ever again on this channel. A lot of people pointed out in the comment section that it kind of feels like you've died. They miss the old Meoni. So yeah, it was a terrible example of what not to do, and I have learned from that. But it was just me trying out something new, seeing if I could, you know, make things a little bit more spicy. But I think people actually prefer my own opinions and my own sort of script work, and sometimes I just don't script things like in this video. I think that probably comes across a lot better than actually overloading you with, you know, sort of examples and comparisons. So I do apologize, but that is the first and the last time that I ever do that. But yeah, it's just so much better to just speak your mind. And unfortunately, I fell into the trap of trying to live up to expectations that I certainly could not live up to with other creators. So it's better to be, you know, crap, but at least write it yourself than be kind of awkward and use someone else's, or in this case, something else's ideas to describe ways to describe Glamour. So thank you for that. Sorry about that. And it won't happen again, quite frankly. It simply can't. It was a weird moment. I've been going through quite a lot of stuff recently, and it was a terrible decision. So I heavily apologize. It will not happen again. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.